What's up, guys? Matt Brown, Steven Andress coming to you. And yes, we know your survivor pool is probably over and probably you're probably not in it anymore. And that's okay because we're glad that you are here. We're going to continue on throughout the rest of the year and just do a few of these futures podcasts. And Steven, look, we're going to not say every week that there's going to be a bet to be made, but we want to at least run through the markets, talk about what's, how the odds have changed, and see if there's anything that maybe we can recommend. Maybe it's not even we think that it's a great bet singularly, but maybe it's hey, make this bet to hedge if you have X, Y, or Z or something like that, right? So we can go through and do stuff like that. So we figured we would keep it rolling, keep it rocking and rolling here. And, maybe we can impart some sort of wisdom to some people out there.
Absolutely. I think the other thing to keep in mind when you're looking at futures is to understand the playoff format. It seems like an easy thing to do, but I think a lot of people don't realize that the bet and the likelihood of their bet winning is very much correlated with the path that a potential team will have in the postseason. So we need to remember that when we're looking at NFL futures, and the fact that it is not a fixed bracket like March Madness or the NBA playoffs. There is reseeding, and the top seed's going to play the lowest remaining seed after their playoff bye week.
So let's go ahead and just start at the top here with Super Bowl, because this is something that, everybody is going to want to bet. Everybody might want to add a ticket in there. Your short shot makes perfect sense. The 49ers are an absolute truck as long as they are healthy. So we'll kind of skip over them. We would never recommend a 2-1 right now on the 49ers. But when you kind of look at the overall picture here, we've seen cracks in just about every other team out there. The Ravens, even though the Ravens are sitting right now with that 1 seed in the AFC, which makes them more attractive and why they're only plus 550. Look, that pass game has not looked sharp. Since Mark Andrews went down, there have been cracks in that offense for sure. The Chiefs, I don't even have to go into depth about that. You guys have eyeballs. We know what's the problem with the Chiefs. The Eagles, very obvious as well. The Dolphins, depending on health and all of that plays into account. There isn't really another team that is an absolute truck. And we know the best team doesn't always win, Steven. So outside of the 49ers, I'm looking at the Bills at 12-1. And listen, this was 16-1 as heading into Sunday. I bet the Bills, so I bet the Bills to win the Super Bowl as well, in conjunction with them to win the game, because here my feeling in it was like, hey, if the Bills win this game, then they are going to really, really jump up everybody's kind of Q score meter, their power ratings, what they think of this team. And so that said, only at 12-1, I think of all the teams that could get in and kind of sneak in the playoffs, the Bills are by far the most dangerous.
I couldn't agree with you more on the AFC side, because we've seen this for a couple of weeks now. If you look at the market consensus ratings, they were ahead of even our staff at the lines. We were kind of inching the Bills up a little bit here and there. Never really got out of our top 7, even when they were losing all those games, because we understood their upside. But even the market, last week, a lot of us weren't ready to crown them over Dallas, and the market was saying, no, they should be favored on a neutral field over Dallas, and they were right. So they still have to kind of thread the needle here. If you look at their schedule, they have 2 very winnable games to get into the tournament, which should potentially set up a very meaningful final game at Miami in Week 18. But, we'd be shocked if they lose to the Chargers or the Patriots at this point. The question becomes, if they win out, is there enough around them to get help and get in? And it seems like if you go through all the algorithms, Matt, and the scenarios and whatnot, it's like a less than 5% chance that they wouldn't get into the playoffs if they win out, because these other teams that are on the bubble at some point have to play each other. So somebody's guaranteed to take a loss. So whether it's backdooring for the division title and getting a home playoff game, or just being one of the wild cards at I guess, what would they be here? 11-6 if they win out. So the question becomes, if they lose that game to the Dolphins, they're going to have issues with tiebreakers here, Matt, because they've lost a lot of games in conference this year in the AFC, and that's one of the primary tiebreakers. So just keep that in mind, that I do still think they have to win out to get in, or they're going to be on the outside looking in.
Yeah, it's just, that's my route to bet them as opposed to, because like to make the playoffs is the yes on the, is all the way to minus 210 at this point. It's like there's no value there like at all. And so I would just rather play the long game here. And then listen, if you've got a 12-1 ticket in your account and it ends up being Bills and Niners, well, you'll still be able to make some money. Like you'll still be able to figure out a good way to hedge and a good way to make some cash in that one. So for me, that's kind of the bet for me on that side. Is there any other of these Super Bowl bets that at least you look at and say, look, I don't necessarily think that they have the best shot of winning this, but this number just doesn't make sense?
So I'll kind of give you an exacta as well. You were kind of giving matchups if Bills face the Niners, but I'll take it one step further and do the exact outcome. I bet this a few weeks ago when it was a bigger number, but still 49ers over the Buffalo Bills is around 25-1, 30-1, depending on where you shop. I think that's a pretty decent bet too. I'm pretty confident, barring injury, the Niners are going to win the Super Bowl at this point. If you look at
they're at least going to get there, right? I mean, like we know whatever, like the weirdness can happen, but like, and we've seen, to be fair, like you said, we have seen when one of the major pieces gets removed, the team is not the same, but we have to assume health. We can't assume injury. And so with that, it would be shocking to me if they didn't make a deep run. It'd be shocking.
Right. But to your point, the only way to bet it is some of these exact outcomes with the team on the AFC side, because if they're going to be the 1 seed, it looks like at this point, the question becomes, is there going to be an upset by the 6 or the 7 seed in the NFC? If not, well, then the Niners, despite being the 1 seed, are in all likelihood going to have to play both the Cowboys and the Eagles to get to the Super Bowl, which would create a theoretical rolling parlay that's probably going to pay you more than what you're getting in Super Bowl futures right now.
So let's head to these division winners. And like most of these are pretty much settled, but the ones that are still out there, obviously the AFC South, the NFC South are up for grabs. And while it looked like it was a foregone conclusion that the Jags were going to take it down, it is now just down to minus 130. The Colts are plus 270, as are the Houston Texans. Over the NFC South, the Bucks minus 165, Saints plus 195, and then the Falcons a little bit out there at 750. I still think the Jags get it done, but I will say it wouldn't shock me at this point if they didn't.
Yeah, I mean, if they get by this week, right, and as we record here on Tuesday afternoon, we don't know if Trevor Lawrence is playing or not at Tampa Bay. That's kind of a big deal
in the concussion protocol. So yes, it is something that he will not have control over because he will have to be cleared.
If they lose this game, that's when it gets interesting. Now they should win the next 2 games, home against Carolina, at Tennessee to close out the year, but they're in a 3-way tie right now. So that if they lose this week, that opens the door for either the Texans or the Colts to win out and take the division. And potentially if the Colts and Texans win each of the next 2 weeks, a winner-take-all match between the Colts and the Texans in the final week of the season to win the division. So, and they both have very manageable schedules. The Texans are home against Cleveland, home against the Titans, and then at the Colts. And the Colts are at Atlanta, home against the Raiders, and then against the Texans. So Jaguars better take care of business here because the teams chasing them have a pretty easy schedule, Matt.
Yeah, it's the and to kind of further that about Houston, they're going to be favored in all 3 games. They're favored against the Browns, and it is under the assumption that C.J. Stroud's going to clear concussion protocol, and so it's. I guess there's an outside shot that he doesn't, but it is under the assumption that he will. And so they're favored against the Browns. Like I said, they'll definitely be favored against the Titans and Colts. And so it is wild. There's no doubt about that. And I'll tell you this, if they do not get Trevor Lawrence back this week, it is very much in the realm of possibility that one of these other teams wins. Like this Bucks team can beat the Jags even with Trevor Lawrence. And without Trevor Lawrence, it is like highly within the range of outcomes for this Bucks team.
And don't forget, Christian Kirk, done for the year. Zay Jones, done for the year. The defense has been regressing in recent weeks from what we saw the first half of the season. This is nowhere near the same Jags team that we all thought coming into the year.
No, not at all. So if you wanted to do that, let's just say it did come down to a winner take all, We're going to be looking at the Texans favored by, what do we call it? 2
Less than
or something
3
like
at
that. Yeah,
Indianapolis.
2 against, like 1.5, 2, something like that against Indy. So maybe the bet here is the Texans at plus 270 to take that division.
Yeah, I think of the 3 choices, I like the Texans most. All of us on the lines are agreed that we still have the Texans with CJ Stroud at quarterback rated higher than the Indianapolis Colts. The Colts have kind of feasted on some bad defenses here and some special teams luck with block punts and whatnot against the Tennessee Titans. So I think they're getting a lot out of their coaching staff to coach Gardner Minshew into some wins here. But they always potentially have, a clunker like we saw at Cincinnati a couple weeks ago where they lose by 20 points. That's certainly within the range of outcomes with just the overall talent that's on this team and at the quarterback position.
And I don't think it's bettable in the NFC South. Like I said, I think the Bucs are the best team in the NFC South, and that's not saying much because I don't like any of the teams. I think they're all terrible, but I think they're the best team in the NFC South, and they might catch a break, as we just said. I mean, there is a chance in which they are fighting for this division and get to play the Jags without Trevor Lawrence, and then they just have to beat the Saints and then it's theirs. I mean, then they get the head-to-head against the Saints the week after that and the Panthers. So at minus 165, not bettable for me because I think that they might luck into, again, a backup quarterback Jags game, and then all they have to do then at that point is just beat the Saints next week.
They're also sitting with a winning record already in the division. They have that game in hand against New Orleans. And if the Saints lose this week, they're 4-point dogs on Thursday Night Football to the Rams, and the Bucs win. Well, now they're a full game up in the win-loss column. So I agree with you. I'm also the quality of the teams here that are chasing Tampa, right? Like, we all know this division stinks. Like, do you really want to take a shot on the Falcons or the Saints to actually run pure enough to have a winning streak here to end the year after what they've shown us all year? I'm much more likely to take a shot. Now, I already have futures on the Texans from the middle of the season, so I'm riding those with everybody. I would agree if I didn't have a position already with these 2 divisions, the Texans would be where I would be looking.
I can tell you this, for me, Steven, another interesting future would be stage of elimination and Dallas Cowboys to lose in the wild card round, because they are going to have to go on the road. Yeah, right. So if we think that Tampa gets it, then that means Dallas has to go on the road outdoors. So it's not going to the Superdome, right? Like it's not going dome to dome. It is the Cowboys then going on the road and then going outdoors on the road, in which they have just no-showed essentially all season long. It is at least interesting to me if we think it's the Bucs, which we do, and then if that's the case, Dallas to lose in the wild card round is a really interesting bet to me. That being said, it's only plus 185, and so I'm wondering what the money line would be on the game between them and the Bucs anyway. So maybe it's just a bet that you can hold off on and just bet the Bucs on the money line if you wanted to go that direction.
Do you think the Eagles figure it out? Because on that stage of elimination bet, I bet you can get a pretty decent price on the Eagles getting bounced early here. And right now, I actually think the Vikings are going to drop out because they still have 2 games left against the Lions. That would make the 6 and the 7 seed something like the Rams and the Seahawks in whatever order you want to put them in potentially here. So, I mean, wouldn't shock you if the Eagles lost to the Rams or the Seahawks in the wild card?
Absolutely not. No, absolutely not. No,
that might be interesting too.
Yeah, so those are other markets that you can look at, guys. Whenever you take a look at some of these things out there, as far as the awards go. Steven, listen, if people were listening to the Megapod along the way, they should have been. You'd be sitting with anywhere from a 30 to 45 to 1 Dak ticket, and you'd be sitting anywhere between a 13 and 18 to 1 Brock Purdy for MVP ticket in your account. So you're feeling pretty good because you would have the favorite and the third favorite right now. Yeah, you would be naked to Lamar Jackson. But that being said, Steven, I don't think Lamar, I don't get the love for Lamar in the MVP. I just do not get it. Like the counting stats are not going to be there. He hadn't played all that great. I mean, like he's been fine, but it's not like he's anywhere close to his previous MVP season. I don't get the Lamar love. So like, in my opinion, I think you have the two two favorites that could actually get it done. And I think Dak's performance this past week all but eliminated him. So I don't know if there's a bettable name in this market to me. I mean, the 49ers basically have to lose out, and I just do not see that happening for the 49ers.
So I will share exactly what I've done the last few weeks, because I was one of the people that had a Dak 40-1 ticket. And last week, before the Niners had what looked like and turned into an easy win against the Cardinals, Brock was still the second choice, a little less than 2-1. I took some of that Dak equity, put it on Brock Purdy. Now, by kind of pulling some equity from Dak and putting it on some different players the past couple of weeks, I couldn't just do it with everybody in the market. I would have, just sacrificed profit. So I had to take a stand against at least one player. And I took a stand against Lamar Jackson. If Lamar Jackson wins MVP, I lose. And I'm okay with that.
I'm naked to Lamar as well. Like I have a 35 on Dak. I don't have a 40. I don't have as good a number as you. And I got a 13 on Purdy. And like, I'm if Lamar wins, so be it. And
let's play this scenario out, Matt, because I think you're probably going to agree with me on this one. If Lamar Jackson beats Brock Purdy on Christmas night, which he's an underdog in the game, but if he does it, I don't think that automatically means Lamar Jackson. Now, he might become the favorite in the odds because it's such a reactive market. But to me, I don't think he becomes I don't think that means he's going to win MVP at that point. I actually think that opens the door again for Dak Prescott or potentially Josh Allen if he runs the table, because those two guys have much better stats than Lamar Jackson. It's not if it was close, then maybe Ty goes to the 1 seed. But the stats aren't close right now.
No, and then further, Lamar then the next week has to step right back up and play the Dolphins. So it's not even a foregone conclusion that he would win out, or anything like that. I mean, he has to step up and play the Dolphins right after that. So I'm with you. I think the market might react, but it would be an overreaction, because I don't think the voters would then just eliminate Brock Purdy just because of one head-to-head competition, which, by the way, the quarterback is still only a piece of that, right? I mean, the defense still has to step up and keep the other team from scoring, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right? So I'm with you. I don't think that it's like an elimination game. I really don't. So I could be mistaken, but I don't think that it is. Like, that's just not where I'm at.
I think it's an elimination game for Lamar if he loses.
Yes,
absolutely.
Yeah.
But not for the Purdy. Other guys. Yeah, so
not for Purdy.
And just to put this in full context for everybody, because for weeks now we've heard about Brock Purdy's getting help from a bunch of other people, yada, yada, yada. But at the end of the season, as things stand right now, Brock Purdy, based on EPA, has put together a better season than Peyton Manning's 55 touchdown year, both of Aaron Rodgers' back-to-back MVPs, and every Patrick Mahomes season to date. That's by EPA. That's how good of a season he's having offensively for this 49ers offense. So to me, the raw numbers, which the voters actually look at, they don't look at metrics like EPA. So like the electorate of voters here are going to see his numbers and his efficiency, and that he's number one in those areas, the same way they did with Matt Ryan when he won it, even though he didn't have the highest raw numbers that season. He's going to be the 1 seed. He's going to have great quarterback numbers. I would be shocked if he doesn't win the award if he wins this week against the Ravens. I think it's actually a done deal if he beats the Ravens this weekend, and that's the end of the day.
Let's hit on one more market and get out of here. But let's head to Coach of the Year, because I think that this one is still up for debate and still one that I think people could get involved in. Because, Dan Campbell is the leader in the clubhouse, but Steichen has done a phenomenal job. Ryans has done a phenomenal job. You could put Shanahan in the conversation every single year if you wanted to. McDaniel, obviously a phenomenal job done down in Miami. I think all 5 are legitimately in this. I think Shanahan actually is the underdog here, mainly because of the knock that we were used to have against Purdy, but now it's actually against Shanahan, which is, hey, yes, Shanahan's good, but with all this friggin' talent, insert any coach here, or because like I think in given what these other guys have done with we can at least say this, with far, far, far less talent, like what these other guys have done with far less talent, at least today in this season, is probably a little bit more impressive, though Shanahan's going to end up falling into that Belichick deal where it's like you could give it to him every year, but he never wins it because it's like that you can always find a reason not to give it to him. What do you think about where we sit right now? I mean, D'Amico Ryans is super interesting at 350, specifically if the season plays out like we just talked about in the AFC South. I think that he is. I think that we could see a new favorite if they were able to somehow capture that division.
Okay, so I want to preface this by saying we can give our opinions and we appreciate everybody listening to it. Yeah. But when it comes to awards this time of season, if you're hearing a bunch of opinions from voters and writers and TV personalities around one specific candidate here, well, that should be worth a lot more to you than what we're telling you in our opinions of these coaches. So the minute you hear kind of a consensus around a candidate, you should be running to the book to bet it, because that happened last year. Everybody thought Kyle Shanahan last year, maybe Nick Sirianni, and then out of nowhere, it seemed Brian Daboll went flying up the board based on all of the writers coming out and saying that they were voting for Daboll. So you have to pay attention to that at this point, because one of the guys down the board here might win a few games to end the year and then get the voters' approval and get on the ballot. So here's just my personal opinion right now, Matt. I think Dan Campbell's going to lose to the Cowboys, and he's not going to win Coach of the Year. He still has a game against Dallas coming up. I think C.J. Stroud's going to win Rookie of the Year, and it's unlikely that the voters put 2 Texans on their awards ballot this year. So I don't think D'Amico Ryans is going to win either. I think Shane Steichen is very live. I mean, he's gotten a ton of credit, and he's priced properly, in my opinion, especially considering he has only the Falcons, Raiders, and Texans left on the schedule. I think Stefanski is live, but I would like to see more talk about him. I haven't seen enough yet. I'm kind of surprised we haven't, but he certainly has kind of the Mike Vrabel case from a few years ago where he had a ton of injuries. He's on his 4th quarterback. His offensive line is decimated. He lost his all-world running back in Nick Chubb, and still he's probably going to win 10-plus games this year. And the last guy I'll mention way down the board is Sean Payton of the Denver Broncos. If he wins out, he's 10-7, probably makes the playoffs, and his games left on the schedule are the Patriots, Chargers, and Raiders. That's it. Mm-hmm. So if he wins out, he's 35-1 right now. Maybe he gets some credit after turning around a dumpster fire of an organization to get to the playoffs. That's kind of where I'm looking right now.
If somebody wanted to put a ticket in their account that it's not the longest of numbers, but it's long enough, and you've heard us often talk about this here on this podcast, and this is how I like to bet things. Can I draw a direct line to player X or person X, or in this case, Coach X, winning Coach of the Year? And you sit there and you look at Mike McDaniel, and he's sitting anywhere 6.5 to 7.5 to 1, and he closes out the season Cowboys, Ravens, Bills. If they win Cowboys, Ravens, Bills, that is going to rocket him up. And here's the thing, guys. He doesn't even have to win for you to be able to make money. If you have a 6.5 or 7.5 in your account already, then you can just come in on the favorite, and then you're going to be good to go. And but if he closes out Cowboys, Ravens, Bills in, again, a very premier game against the Cowboys, what will be a very premier game against the Ravens, and what will be a very big game against the Bills, because the Bills might be fighting for their playoff life in this game. For me, you're looking at a guy that closes out incredibly strong, wins 6 of his last 7 games as well, or 7 of his last 8 games, I should say, as well, to close out the season. I think he puts his name at least right there. And like I said, once you have a 6.5 or 7 in your account, you can make money no matter what.
Let me give a counterpoint here and get your reaction to it. Wouldn't you rather just rolling parlay the Dolphins on the money line each of the next 3 weeks and be guaranteed the payout based on your assumption that he needs to win all 3 to win Coach of the Year? Well,
I mean, here's the thing. In theory, this is not me. I want everyone to know this is not me getting on to Steven here or whatever. But in theory, yeah, but that's just not how people bet. I give realistic bets that people are actually going to make or whatever. But in theory, you can always do these rolling parlays and all that. And if you're a super savvy and advanced bettor, then absolutely you can go those directions and all things like that. But most people forget. Like you make the first bet and you forget to even put in the second one. And then after if you did remember to put in the second one and you see that big fat number in your account, it's very hard to pull the trigger on like putting that money in on the third bet and all that, especially if you're not a bigger bettor and stuff. And so like, yeah, you could make more money by doing that. It's just for me, I don't really know if that's how
bettors don't do it a lot.
I just don't know if that's how most people go about it, right? That's mainly my deal there. But yes,
one last point I want to make about these markets, and we talked about Kyle Shanahan. We haven't talked about Offensive Player of the Year. It's a two-player race at this point between Christian McCaffrey and Tyreek Hill. Christian McCaffrey's taken over as the favorite because Tyreek missed a game. I just want to note that if Brock Purdy wins MVP, the last time that one team has split MVP and Offensive Player of the Year was the Greatest Show on Turf Rams back in 1999 and 2001 when Kurt Warner won MVP and Marshall Faulk won Offensive Player of the Year. And Faulk in those years had more than 2,000 scrimmage yards both times he won. McCaffrey's not going to have that. So maybe they split it. Maybe the Niners split those two awards. And it probably will happen if Tyreek Hill keeps missing games. But if Tyreek Hill's able to finish out the season here, Matt, I'd be kind of surprised if the Niners take both of those awards.
Yeah. And again, guys, the main takeaway here, if you're hearing kind of like why we're doing theory on all this, is because this is still all voted on by human beings. And there's no criteria in any of these. And that's the other thing about it. It's not like, oh, if you meet this, then you get this vote for sure or whatever. And that's not how it works. It's not that at all. It's me and Steven and 8 other dumbasses sitting in a room together. Go like one day we're having some beers and it's kind of like, you know what? We can't give 2 awards to the same team. And like, you know what? You're right, Bob. We can't give 2 awards. It's like, so that's why we're saying this stuff from a theory standpoint, because we've seen it play out before where like it almost feels like they don't want to give too many awards to one team because they don't feel like they're being fair or whatever.
I also want to get one last opinion because it's been like one of the biggest hot button topics in NFL betting this year. Comeback Player of the Year in DeMar Hamlin. He's gone to minus.
It's won. It's over. It's over.
It's over for him.
He's won. He's won it. Yes.
What if Baker Mayfield runs the table?
He played meaningful snaps. It doesn't matter. The guy died on the field. It doesn't matter at this point. Like he played meaningful snaps. It doesn't matter. Like
I think you're probably right, especially since there isn't a really other compelling candidate. I think the only one is maybe Baker because he was he's the Geno Smith mold, right? But when Geno won, there wasn't anything close to the DeMar Hamlin story. I'm just saying, keep an eye out to the clippings and the news and, the TV personalities. If there starts becoming a Baker Mayfield Comeback Player of the Year campaign, we should at least listen to it. But I agree with you right now that it's probably DeMar Hamlin.
Yeah, I mean, look, I was against it until he actually got on the active roster and then played in game, like played actual snaps and made a tackle in a game and all that and whatever. Like that point, the dude died. Like, come on, he's going to win this thing. Guys, we're going to do this for the next few weeks, so be sure and check back with us on everything. We'll keep you updated on how these odds move and where we think, there might be an edge, or where at least maybe if you already have a cool ticket in your account where you can hedge off and maybe make some money somewhere along the way as well. If you want to continue this discussion, you can head on over to the Discord, go to lines.com, upper right-hand corner. We're always talking football. And by the way, we're in basketball season right now. We're in college basketball season. And golf isn't too far around the corner. So we will be talking all those things over in the Discord as well. So be sure and get in and talk to us over there. Everything we do, absolutely free. So go ahead and hit that subscribe button if you have not so far. If we get to 50,000 subscribers by the Super Bowl, we have time. This is real. We can do this. We have just a massive giveaway, but you got to be a subscriber to be in on that. For Steven, I'm Matt. Good luck on all your futures bets.